Hi everyone, and welcome back to today's Love Transformation class. I'm with the beautiful Renee Slansky. Renee is an international dating coach and the founder of the Dating Directory, and I'm super excited for this conversation because Renee has a lot of experience coaching men, and there's some pretty powerful insights that we can learn from that. I'm really excited to dive into that topic today. Renee, thanks for joining us.
Thanks for having me again. I'm super excited to be here. I really loved last time, so I'm like, yes, she's invited me back for a second time.
Beautiful. Okay, so one of the common issues that women have that they're really struggling with at the moment is all of these mixed messages about how much I should show a man that I'm interested versus how much I should play cool. I'd love to hear from your experience, Renee. What are some of the feedback that you're getting from men about, I guess, that current state of how easy or difficult it is to create a connection with women these days?
Yeah, I think that in the past, the feedback that I was getting from men, and in the past, I'm talking about a couple of years ago, was that, you know, women are doormats. Women are too easy. Like, I can just walk all over them. It's like, where's the challenge? You know, where's the chase? But now it's kind of like we've done this flip, and that's probably because we've had a lot of role reversal in society. Women are starting to step more into their masculine. Women are getting, you know, roles of leadership in business. And there's been a real sort of, I guess, spotlight on women kind of taking the power back and really stepping into that high value sort of woman. And so a lot of my male clients are then coming to me. And even one of the channels which I coach for in America, which has, I think, almost 800,000 male subscribers, it has this common thread. And they feel like, one, what they do is never enough to be able to please a woman. They feel like women have become high maintenance, and they don't understand why all of a sudden women have done this shift where they are wanting to take lead all of a sudden. They're wanting to be the ones to be able to go, okay, well, this is how it should be, and blah, blah, blah. And it's actually coming across really as self-entitled rather than high value. And of course, that has the complete opposite effect on men. Men are withdrawing. Men are now getting to a stage where they're like, well, what's the point? And literally, this is what they say to me. They're like, well, what's the point, Renee? I do this, I do this, I do this, I do all these things, and it's still not enough for her. What else am I supposed to do? And that's really frustrating for me as a coach because, you know, I want these women out there who are coming to me saying, where are all the good men, Renee? Why can't I find a great man who's able to romance me and do all these things? And I was like, these men are right here in front of you. It's just that we are blind to what our own behaviors are, which are then blocking those men from being able to enter into our lives and our hearts.
There's so many juicy rabbit holes that we can explore under this topic. First of all, just on that. So what small tweaks or small changes in behavior do you think would make the difference to these men that are saying, just don't feel like what I'm doing is enough? Is there anything, I guess, just in terms of addressing that, first of all, what could we or should we be doing different that would help to have men feel like we weren't being entitled or we were appreciative of what they were doing, or for them to want to continue to invest the same level of effort into building that connection with us?
Okay, so I'd have to say that probably the easiest thing to do, and men aren't complicated. We love to complicate things as women because we like to think way ahead. But for men, it's really, really simple. I believe that the number one love language for men, and I'm guessing most of you girls out there know what the 5 love languages are, is words of affirmation. I believe that words of affirmation even come before physical touch, which I believe is their second love language. Men respond to being affirmed and validated over something. It's why, you know, we attach that whole, okay, stroke his ego thing. This isn't about stroking his ego. This is about giving him validation that who he is and what he does is enough. It's something that men will constantly look for, a lot of the time from their father when they're really young, and then obviously the love from their mother. So they get the nurturing side from their mother, which is more like the physical touch sort of side. And then they get the affirmation side from their father. And because affirmation is the number one, it's something that we have to be able to tap into. And I remember years ago, I was recording a video coaching lesson for a big network. And I was talking about how women, we need to start giving men more praise. We need to start recognizing and validating what they are doing right instead of telling them what they're doing wrong. And one of the producers in the room was like, amen, halfway through the recording, because it's a cry that I hear a lot of guys say. And it's because it's a deep, fulfilling need. If you want to set yourself up for a healthy relationship, you just can't go in and say, this is who I am. I'm this awesome woman. I'm this, I have this, this, and this to this. That's fantastic that you know what you have to give and who you are. But that's only half of it. The other half of the relationship is understanding who men are, what it is that men need. And one of the simplest things you can do is start affirming him, whether it is him being able to choose a restaurant, saying, thank you so much, you picked a great restaurant, okay? It doesn't have to be something where you're like overly going on and on about what he's doing. It could just be a little simple compliment that is appropriate in the moment to say, hey, I recognize what you've done, I'm validating it, and I appreciate it. So that is literally the easiest way to be able to do that.
So what about, I know that there's probably lots of women thinking, but Renee, I put everything into my relationships. I'm always doing things for him. I'm always loving on him. I try so hard and he seems to be the one who takes me for granted. Where's that fine line? How would we know if which way we're skewing in our relationships?
Yeah, absolutely. And it is about a balance. It's why we need to have expectations around relationships so that we have standards and boundaries so that we can not only protect ourselves and have what it is that we're deserving of. And when I say deserving of, I'm not talking because you're a woman, you deserve more than a man. I'm talking about the fact that because you're human, you deserve to be loved in a whole and healthy way. This isn't about gender roles here. It's important to be able to have those standards and expectations also so that you can allow that person to step up when they need to. As I always say to my girls, he can either step up or step out. This is understanding that if you are a doormat, okay, if you're one extreme to the other, whether you're a doormat or whether you're coming from a place of self-entitlement, you're always going to get an extreme reaction, okay? So it's about finding that halfway point. And that halfway point is knowing what the fundamental needs of a relationship are. For example, the fact that we all need relationships in our life. It is a human need. We have relationships in our life. So there's nothing wrong with you craving love and wanting more. The number two thing is that we have a choice in relationships, which is we choose how to respond to that person. We choose what it is that we accept, and what it is that we expect and how we respond determines the health of our relationship and whether or not that person is going to be the best version of themselves or not. And the third thing is that we're accountable to our role in the relationship. So if you are a doormat, for example, if you're the sort of woman that is just feeling that you're being taken for granted, that you're doing all these things and it never seems to be enough, and you're essentially either chasing him or you're just there for him and he is getting all the benefits without actually giving you the commitment, then that is a choice that you're making. Now, whether you're doing it willingly or not, it's still a choice. And if you choose to do nothing about it, then you're still choosing to be in that situation. And it's not about then going, well, I'm going to be the extreme. I'm going to all of a sudden, tell him that I'm this independent woman and you need to do this, this, and this, and start bossing him around, because you will push him away. You have to find that balance coming from a place of abundance, because if you come from a place of lack of self-love, lack of boundaries, or fear of getting hurt, so you're just going to build a wall around yourself and push every man away because you're this strong, independent woman, either way, you're going to get the same result. You're going to be stuck going, why can't I find a man that either wants to commit to me or love me? Why is he taking me for granted? And, the same sort of conversations that you have over and over again. So if you can get to that halfway point of knowing what a relationship takes, and knowing how to activate that in your relationships and in your life, understanding that you can't go around trying to change men or fix men or expecting him to be your solution to your desire, when your desire is actually based on fear, then that is where the actual key things start to get breakthrough.
It seems to me like, regardless of which side of the fence you're on, one of the missing pieces, and I'd love for you to share any insights you have on this, that I see is our lack of being able to really authentically communicate in just a relaxed, gracious, high value way, communicate our boundaries, communicate our needs. Why is it that we don't seem to be able to do this so effectively in relationships? Or if we do, we don't get the reaction that we want. It's sort of like a missing skill for a lot of women, right?
I think it's a missing skill for people in general, like is the glue. I think there's been more conversations about communication at this time in history than before. In regards of how to refine communication. I mean, there's books like How to Win Friends and Influence People and this sort of thing, and step into leadership. Communication isn't just about having a conversation. Communication is communicating through your actions, communicating through your choices. What do you allow? What do you not allow? No response is still a response. I think a lot of the reasons why we hold back on communicating our needs or wants or whatever it is because we have fear of their reaction. And usually we have a core fear. And from that core fear, we might have several core fears, we start making these decisions from, or we start communicating from. So if you have this core fear of rejection, for example, then you will always kind of bounce around the subject and walk on eggshells because you're scared to say anything because you don't want to be rejected. So I believe that in order to be able to communicate, first we've got to understand, well, what's stopping you from communicating, which basically boils down to some type of fear. And if you're able to understand where that fear is coming from and how to counteract that fear, then it's going to give you more confidence to be able to communicate. Now, the other thing about communication is people talk to talk. They don't necessarily talk to listen. And part of communication is also listening to what he has to say instead of just talking about what it is that you want to say. And there's a really, really amazing way to be able to communicate with men. And I'll share it with you girls now, is that if you want to be able to get him to see it from your way or help him understand that there's a different sort of perspective, the first thing you do is affirm. Yes, I understand what it is that you're saying. I can see how you would think that. Okay, so you're affirming and validating his thought first. And so saying, no, that's not right. I never, ever, ever say to my own fiance, no. And you can ask him this today. I never say no, unless it's like an extreme situation. I never say no. I always say, okay, yeah, I can see how you think that. Yeah, no, that's a really good point. The next thing you want to do is you then want to give them a different perspective or an example. So you're saying, but have you seen it this way instead? Have you seen it that if we actually do this, this is the possibility that could happen? Men respond to logic, not emotion. And then the third thing you want to do is ask. So you want to affirm, you want to example, and then you want to ask. But what do you think? Because then you're not forcing it on them. And purely by, honestly, like, this bit of information will change your conversation, literally. And it always makes me laugh because like my fiance will really be like, so true, it's so true. Like I can come in with this idea and all of a sudden she'll completely change my mind without me even realizing it. And I'll walk away going, wow, no, I've come up with this idea and everything like that. And I say, the man's the head and the woman's the neck and the neck turns the head, right? So it's not manipulation. It's about understanding how men work. It's about understanding, okay, if their main love language is words of affirmation, well, of course they're going to shut down if you all of a sudden start berating them, belittling them, nagging them, or telling them what they're doing wrong. And if men want to lead and they want to be feeling like they are the leader, they are the hero, they are the rescuer, if all of a sudden you're coming in with the solutions instead of offering them examples of how solutions could occur, then you're going to get two different reactions. And of course, asking him again is putting him in that sense of, she needs me, because men need to be needed. So just little adjustments in conversations and communication like that can literally start to change how he feels about you, how he responds to you, which obviously gives you a better, more positive reaction. So then positive feeds positive. And that's how you start to work through issues. You have to understand men do not communicate the same way that we communicate.
Beautiful. And I love that as well. It's a really powerful reminder that we are the co-creators of our relationship, because I think all too often I see people saying, you know, oh, that didn't work because he was a this, that, or the other, or he was this. But we really are such powerful co-creators in those relationships. And it's important to understand that there's beautiful skills like communication that you've talked about that makes such a difference as to how successful those relationships are.
Yeah.
I want to circle back around now to, I guess, to the very beginning of our conversation and really talk to those women that are single at the moment, or that may have met someone and be in the really, really early stages of dating and still feeling a little bit confused about, okay, so I like this guy and I'm interested, and I want him to know that I'm interested. I want him to still keep pursuing me, but I want to keep my cards kind of close to my chest. Like, I don't want to be all in and then, you know, risk feeling rejected or embarrassed, or maybe like come on, you know, too full on and push him away. Like, it's such a tricky thing to navigate. Really want to sort of get more of your juicy insights about how we navigate that tricky stage.
Yeah. Okay. So it's so true. And I think the reason why we think it's trickier than what it actually is because of our beautiful female brain, where we're constantly wanting that security, reassurance, validation, and love. Okay. We're programmed to want love. It's right from birth in the female brain. It doesn't happen in male's brain. They learn that later on. And men and women handle relationships completely different, especially in the beginning phase. We're looking for, okay, does he want to be with me? It's confirmation. And the guy's just happily enjoying his time and getting to know you. So there's actually a lot that we can learn from men. Now, the key here to make sure that you are getting to know the character before the commitment, because that is so much more important than commitment, is actually knowing who you're committing to. Is this someone who's compatible with me, not just someone I have chemistry with? Is this a man who's on the same page as me? Does he want the same things as me? Okay, so that is the thing that we need to focus on. That is why we take our time dating. This isn't a rush. Dating is not a status. Dating is a phase that we move through to evaluate whether or not that person is right for us. Now, obviously we want to keep the process moving, okay? Because otherwise we stagnate, or he flakes off and then he goes and marries the girl after you and all this sort of stuff. And we're just like, what the hell am I doing wrong? And typically speaking, it's usually the 3-month sort of mark where it's kind of like it goes somewhere or it doesn't. And you just like, and most of the time for a lot of girls, hence why you're frustrated, you're like, it doesn't go anywhere. He just kind of like goes really great. And then he just doesn't want to go that extra mile. So what we need to do here is we need to create tension. And when I talk about tension, I'm not talking about playing games or manipulating. There is a difference between chasing and initiating. Initiating is showing interest and confidence. Chasing is turning into a doormat and investing more than what he's investing. Tension is the space in between. Tension is basically giving a little to make sure that he's giving back, but not giving too much to a point where A, you don't know him well enough, or B, you're not providing him the chase to be able to continually win you over. So for example, it might be sending him a text. A lot of girls go, how often should I text a guy? Okay, it might be something like you've just had a great date with him. And you think, oh, should I text him? When should I text him? It's the next day. You know, you could send him a text in the morning saying, thanks for last night. I had a really lovely time. Hope that you're not too tired. Little winky face. Okay. That is initiating a conversation. That is showing that you are showing interest, which is important, because if you don't show enough interest, he will think you're not interested and go elsewhere. But it's not chasing. Chasing would be sending 5 more texts after that if he hasn't responded. Okay. So by creating this tension of saying, yes, I'm ready to get to know you. I'm ready to invest into you if you're ready to invest back into me. And by guarding your heart and pacing yourself, you're able to really work out, okay, does this man want to continue to invest into me over time? Is he stepping up his game each and every time as I'm stepping up mine? And that's how you really get him past that 3-month mark, and to know, okay, not only am I starting to get him to want me and continue to desire me and move forward, but I'm actually getting to know him at the same time.
And what about for the girls? Because I know back in my 20s and 30s, I had a lot of dating anxiety and used to find if I sent a text out first and then there was no response, I'd get so super anxious and nervous about, the status of what was happening. What would you suggest for someone who feels anxious?
Yeah, I totally get it. And I think when you have either high anxiety, whether it's around dating or just anxiety in general, you always tend to overthink everything anyway. Even if you did text first, you would then start to stress out, okay, what should I text back and everything like that. So if it's not one thing, it's another. I think it's about managing expectations on yourself, expectations on him, and expectations on the very, very new relationship. So what the expectation should be is, I'm going to have a conversation, and that's it. And by sending a text, you've already made that a expectation that's realistic because you've acted on it, and he's either acted back or he hasn't, or, usually you get some sort of response. And if you understand it, that this is about building a conversation rather than building a relationship, you take the pressure off his response, and therefore you release yourself off the idea of being rejected. Because if someone doesn't want to talk to you or have a conversation, it's not as bad as having someone reject you because they don't want a relationship with you. And as women, we go straight into the relationship phase instead of just understanding the initial sort of dating conversation phase. Hence why we get disappointed. Hence why we put a lot of pressure on men. And the guys are just like, oh, I was just on the toilet. I couldn't text back straight away. And before you know it, we've already done this whole scenario in our head based on what we desire eventually down the track with this guy that we don't even really know, right? Because we're like, but I want to get married. I was that girl. I used to be like, first date, and I'd already like attached his last name to my name sort of thing. And I was like imagining what our children would look like, right? It's no wonder that men used to run from me, and it's no wonder I was disappointed because I was falling for men and becoming attached to men, and based on what I eventually wanted. And then I was like, okay, well, this is what I want. Let's try and fit him into this box without actually even knowing him. And then when I got to know him, I realized he didn't fit into that picture at all because he wasn't able to give me a healthy relationship. Then I became disappointed. Then I became heartbroken. Then I tried to fix him to try and make him fit into that box. And you can see how the cycle goes.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is pretty common actually. And that's sort of more like, we're interested in a guy, but then this overwhelming desire comes in that we need for him to choose us. It becomes something so much bigger than him wanting to continue to date us. Where does that come from?
All right. I'm going to get technical. It actually comes from birth. So when a baby is born, a female baby, she will constantly be having very active, she'll be having active eyes for her father or her mother. So if you hold a female baby, she'll be trying to make eye contact with whoever is holding her. If you hold a male baby, his eyes will be looking all around the room. The reason why is, I know it's fascinating, right? The reason why is because the female baby from birth, she is programmed to seek validation and affirmation from whoever it is that holding her. Instantly, she's looking for love. Instantly, she's looking for validation. It's why a lot of girls who have either had fathers abandon them or not be present have a lot of issues with then trying to find love with men. It's because you've been subjected to it as a child and instantly been rejected as a child. That then becomes in your DNA, in your cognitive cycle. And then you go out looking for love from other men, and you usually continue to attract what it is that you don't want because you have this deep underlying fear. For men, as I said, like when the little male babies are born, they're not looking for that validation. That's something that comes later on in life. It's why men are more independent. It's why they work better alone. It's why they're not as emotionally connected, all these sort of things. So that's actually the scientific reason why. And obviously we act out of stuff that is built biologically into us without even realizing it. And then we create these patterns. And what we do is these patterns happen over and over again, causing the same sort of actions and response. And we find ourselves in our 30s, in our 40s, in our 50s, in our 60s going, why am I still feeling like this? Why am I still chasing men? Why am I still seeking validation? Why is it not easier? And it's not because it's your fault. It's because you've been programmed that way. And if you haven't actually had the answer from a young age or learned the answer through growing up, then your brain will just constantly keep seeking out what it's always desired.
What I'd love to know is what are your, I guess, most effective tips then for someone in the early stages of dating in order to be able to manage those expectations, keep the pace, you know, nice and slow so you can evaluate whether this person's ideal, and kind of almost for those people who tend to get overly invested, rein things back a little bit. What sort of techniques, or is there anything practical we can do to be able to take things slow and not emotionally overinvest?
Yeah, I think don't stop your life just because you've met a guy, no matter how amazing he is. And even if he wants to speed up the pace, doesn't mean that you should. I think that you have to have that balance between still having your goals, your purpose, your social life, and dating at the same time. Only my kind of like rules of thumb, because I know it's nice to have some guidelines, is see them once a week for the first 4 weeks, no more than that. Do not go back to their place during that time. Keep it really casual. As I said before, you want to keep that tension. You want him to kind of win you over and show that he actually is invested beyond just sleeping with you or just having you whenever it is that he wants. It gives you also time to work out how you feel about him, not just how he feels about you, which is equally as important. It's not just what the guy wants, it's also about what you want. And it gives you also a chance to see his character and to see what his consistent is. So see him once a week for the first month, then you can start to up it as the months go on. Keep dating casual in the beginning. And what I mean by casual is not casual sex, obviously. I'm talking about don't go too formal too soon. Don't go too familiar too soon. And too familiar is just hanging out at each other's houses, you know, cooking dinners for each other in a really kind of coupley situation. Date each other, go to restaurants, go to parks, go for beach walks, go to coffees, go to public places, different environments, different circumstances, to see how he responds and behaves in each one. And also so that you can continue to create that tension and have him actually court you the old school way without having all those benefits of a relationship, which is cozying up on the couch and all that sort of stuff and sleeping over, until he's actually earned that and until you've gotten to know who he is.
Yes, beautiful. I really, really love that. And it's nice, I think, sometimes to have a little bit of a framework or some guidelines, because we all get caught up sometimes in the chemistry of a situation, particularly when a man comes on super strong in the beginning and he's messaging all day and wanting, what are you doing tomorrow night? And I think it's really helpful to have a bit of a framework to follow. Is there anything else that you would love to share with our audience? I've loved this conversation. Thank you so much, Renee. In terms of tips, advice, suggestions for 2020?
I think I just want to say that it's not a competition of who does more in a relationship or who should do more. We need to remember that if you want a high value man, you have to understand who you need to become to be able to attract that. Going into 2020, it's not just going, okay, well, this is my year to find love. Obviously, you have to do something, especially if you have a history of relationships breaking up. There needs to be something different. Date differently to get a different outcome. Date smart. Love isn't meant to be this complicated process. It shouldn't be full of anxiety. It shouldn't be something that you become exhausted by. I guess one tip I would say is minimize the amount of dates that you go on, or the amount of dating apps. I've seen girls go, well, I went on Bumble, then Tinder, then Hinge, and blah, 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 blah. And it's like, if you cannot find at least 5 quality dates on that one app alone, you're doing something wrong, and you shouldn't be downloading another app. So it's really definitely quality over quantity, and understanding that if you really know how to focus in on what it is that you need, as well as what it is that you want and who you need to become in order to be able to attract that, that's when love becomes so much easier, and dating actually becomes something that automatically just happens in your life, instead of you feeling that you have to go out there and seek him and find him.
And for those in our audience who would love to connect with you, Renee, or experience more of your work, your content, your message, I know we have a beautiful free gift to give away.
Well, you can follow me on my YouTube channel. I'm always giving out like loads of advice there. My Instagram is still just my name, Renee Slansky.
All of those things that we've just mentioned will be linked below the video, so go and check those out. Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom. I always love these conversations, Renee, and thank you for joining us again on the Love Breakthrough Retreat for 2020.
My pleasure. See you next time.